Rock and I are here. Some days I'm not sure if I'm gonna make it. Do you feel like that? Do you feel like that ever? Of course we do. We all do. Mornings can be a tricky time, right? When we come from the realm of sleep and dreams and that other way of being. But I'm here and I love being here. Right. So let's start formally. Formally meaning this is the first part I chop off because later on. Thanks again for being here. Hi, I'm Alex Levin. We're here together in Sun and Moon Yoga Studios, one of its venues. Isn't it great? We're getting these alternate ways of being. I personally can't wait till I have this idea that the next way of video connecting, besides our video calls, will be holographic somehow. I'm not sure how that'll be, but I have great hopes for that being a super cool thing where instead of you being, well, I can't even see you unless you chat, but instead of you being out there somewhere, or even if you're on a video call or Zoom, that you could actually be seated together, like the form, the 3D, that Star Trek, like almost like a little bit, what's it called, translucent form. But here, isn't that cool? I can't wait for that. Anyhow, my thoughts this morning are I usually have a couple themes that are coming together, two or three that sort of inform each other. Um, and today's sequence, I think, will be a little bit different. I'll just drop the seeds of my theme idea and we'll drop into the movement. And then I will read some poetry to take us into the meditation, read a few poems. Um, as these artists' words, I find, are so powerful to take us again to a different state of mind, just as I was mentioning before we started about how there's a different mind state. Scientists, if they put electrodes on our heads, measure different kinds of brain waves in sleep and in waking state. And the brain waves are different for meditators when you're meditating, and for meditators who have been meditating for a long, long, long time, or just a short time. There are actually ways our brains are functioning in different ways. So I'm thinking about much like one of Annie's recent themes of quiet, of simply the something I bring up often, that simply, not so simply, that space, spaciousness, silence, and stillness that is such a challenge to include in our lives, even for those of us who crave it, who honor it, who enjoy it. Somehow, the pull of responsibility, of creativity, of necessity, of seems to dominate, seems to trump that quieter, as Adyashanti says. It's a very, very quiet voice. It's not, it's like the opposite of that. It's that yin yang, and yet it's beyond that. But it's that invitation to the stillness, spaciousness, silence is a very quiet, and yet maybe you can check with yourself, but would you agree with me? It's a strong, strong pull. So in that, I contemplate how when we come to our quiet, when one of the reasons I think it's a little or a lot difficult is when we actually come to that, to make that space, to even pause between a bite of food and picking up your fork again and having the next bite of food. One reason that's so difficult is, and there are many, and this is an inquiry that you can maybe pose for yourself today, is that um, what arises there can be both really delicious and supportive, nurturing, but it can also be terrifying, just absolutely terrifying to be with some unknowns or the dark sides of ourselves. And so, rather than spend a lot of time on that, that is true. There are things that come up. And I will say one more thing about that, that when that arises, it's absolutely there's a skill we create in we hone in meeting that to where we can recognize that visitor as Sharon Salzberg talks about these different mm, visitors, whether they're mental or imagery or thoughts or physical sensations. This visitor of terror or something you just can't touch, can't deal with, or so afraid of, that we know at that point we can create a boundary. This is a creative kind of piece, and yet um, a powerful and empowering, and even part of our responsibility of healthy boundaries. Maybe that's a term that's kind of overused and some of us cringe at, but um, we can recognize that over there and make a distance physically. We can. I've once, I think I've shared, I had an image it was of a person in my life coming up, and I put her in a bell jar. I kind of did it automatically, not too far from myself, and I'm hoping that person could breathe in there, but it's all in our minds, right? So, and I was able to be with that person in this space. And so just as we anyway, we create that, that'll be a theme for maybe next week. Let's see if I can remember that. Make a little note for myself here. But the one I so there's the silence, stillness, spaciousness that we maybe have a prayer for and want to include in our life. There's the this three parts. The second part is this failure we encounter when we aim to get still and when we can't because of something that derails us so much. And then there's what supports us. And there's that's a big chapter as well. And part of it is that we have the cushions. I have cushions nearby. So when I set up to get to my movement and meditation setup, I'll have my cushion for my aching knee and a little blanket folded to sit up on. We've got the floor. We've got the foundation of our building. We've got all the learning we've ever done and all the teachers we've ever had. We have our uh, support. I was recently at a funeral for a relative, a more distant relative, and I'm just reminded, as recently having been at funerals that were of my close family, but to attend a funeral where there was so many people, and I'm a very peripheral person in that family, yet I feel very closely connected, and I have fond ties to the members of that nuclear family, and it felt right, and it felt like I hardly ever see them, but they are part of my support as well. And that was a theme spoken of. It was spoken that that idea there at that memorial. So we have this silence, spaciousness, and stillness that we're about to go into practice and enter into to whatever degree we can. There's the distractions that come, the flow that is always coming in, and some of it is imagery and things that are not scary or not that is just neutral, or some that we really enjoy and glom onto in that way. And then there is the third leg of this vast amount of support that is here for us. And so, as in last week, whatever position you choose, the movement is going to be so small that you can do it from laying down, from uh, sitting, from legs up the wall, from lying on your side. And the seated position. And the seated position has a special energy. So if you want, you can do the movement in a more relaxed position. And the seated position has a element of alertness, of our spine being much like an antenna or the stalk of a sunflower that invites, in a way, a connection not just to the horizontal realm and the center of ourself, but very much puts the center of ourself as a channel to something so much greater up above infinitely to the galaxies and universes and downward to the very root of our here-ness of this temporal world. So let's, as we prepare for the movement, and the prelude here was a little longer than I thought, but I think it works. And just start to feel your own here-ness, your own presence through this physical body. Perhaps close your eyes. That helps to turn the attention into our own attentiveness. Be mindful. I'm kind of finding, where is it I want my hands to be as I'm speaking and guiding. I'm using my hands, but maybe I'll let them rest. And take enough time to very amply sense the physical support of earth that is such a strong touchstone, to have encoded in the web of our mind, our memory bank, that really is not only, when I say memory bank, you might think the head, but it's everywhere. It's decentralized. It's throughout our body, in the cellular, in the neural, the more chemical and the more electric. And begin to tune into breath and how that complements this prayer for presence. And especially bring your attention to the fine-tuned elements of movement in the deep low belly and hip area, this very rich. I mean, every part of our body is important, but I'm going to focus. It's nice, and it's not just nice. It's useful. It's honoring to give attention to ea- each part individually. Sometimes we do that because we have to. We've got a splinter, and we just feel how precious that little part of our pinky was that is now hurt, and we need to tend to getting that splinter out. So life calls us to that, honoring moments. And here in this deep belly area, which is the root of the central channel that takes us to, like, the umbilical cord to the center of the earth, mother. Oh, it's Mother's Day. This earth mother. And to this same part of our body just below, actually, where the umbilical cord to our earthly mother, our biological mother, resides. And it's this juncture of this uprightness, and this energetic uprightness, and also the hip joints of mobility, of joy, freedom. And for this movement part, I'd like us to just enjoy and be in curiosity and wonder about how these parts move with the breath. What is the dance here between the breath and the parts that include ligaments and organs and bones and the material that holds the joints in place and allows the joints to move and the deeper structures of the bone, which are the marrow. And so usually, kind of naturally, we sense that our belly expands here. It can expand as we inhale, and we might have some training to that effect. I can remember to stay relaxed as I notice my forehead uh, furrowing as its habit is. That we could relax our jaw, and that we can, even as we're sensing what movement is there, is expansion, is there more availability for the breath to be felt and moved on one side or the other? Is there a sense of the back body? So if we feel this part as a sphere, roughly, can we include in our awareness, in our attention, all its parts? And also have this light attention that's of the rest of the body, of the surroundings, of immediate and a little more distant, and then way, way far away into infinity. And I'm going to invite you to do something that might be very foreign if we've practiced with generally inhaling and letting the belly expand, and then exhaling and let it, quote unquote, deflate. And this is an uncoupling of that pattern to where, as you exhale, so watch as the inhale and you have that full filling sense. But on the exhale, what if there was uh, an, a fullness remaining? So instead of a collapsing in of the tissue there, what if on the exhale we're relaxed in a way to keep it soft and open all around the low belly, pelvic floor, sacral area, and the back tail area, and sort of above toward the diaphragm muscle. And this is tricky if you've not played with it this way. Relax the jaw because this could be some effort coming in. So the inhale has a kind of expansion, and then on the exhale, there's sort of a transition at the pause after the inhale. And on the exhale, in order for the softness and openness to remain, there's sort of a different symphony of movement that happens, of availability. And then let that go. This is an experiment that's can be quite effort making. So let it go and just let your movement come back to its natural course in breath and how the body receives the breath. transition into a meditation that will be just about 8, 9 minutes. So now consciously move your body if needed. You might just stay right where you are toward a stillness, and yet there's never complete stillness, a silence, an awareness of the spaciousness, and letting go into these three S's, just as Rupert Spira reminded me through YouTube earlier today, just like when we're falling asleep, just letting go, just like, and yet a little different because we're not completely going to that sleep state, but we're just hovering and resting at this other state, meditative state. And just let these words that I'll be reading be in the very background, just as guides if they're helpful, to keep you right here in the very location you are, and yet everywhere at once, in this moment, and yet timeless. Thirst. Oh no, I'm starting with a different one. Mary Oliver. Praying. It doesn't have to be the blue iris. It could be weeds in a vacant lot or a few small stones. Just pay attention, then patch a few words together, and don't try to make them elaborate. This isn't a contest, but the doorway into thanks and a silence in which another voice may speak. What is your prayer? I would say, I realize this might be a fourth leg. There is our silence, stillness, spaciousness. Second leg, the various things that come and go, sometimes deep distractions, fears. A third leg of knowing the vast support we have, and deep and vast and myriad. Even as a newborn, it's already there for us. And this fourth leg is, there's something in us that is a prayer, and many prayers. Maybe it's just as the one that Mary talks about here, a doorway into thanks and silence. As this second poem, also by Miss Oliver, is entitled Thirst, I lead you toward the just very gentle rumination or opening to what is your prayer? What is your thirst? Another morning, and I wake with thirst for the goodness I do not have. I walk out to the pond, and all the way, God has given us such beautiful lessons. O Lord, I was never a quick scholar, but sulked and hunched over my books past the hour and the bell. Grant me in your mercy a little more time. Love for the earth and love for you are having such a long conversation in my heart. Who knows what will finally happen or where I will be sent? Yet already I have given a great many things away, expecting to be told to pack nothing except the prayers, which, with this thirst, I am slowly learning. And just resting in this place of silence, stillness, spaciousness, more and more having less reactivity, or maybe the reactivity is there, but a sense we gain a sense with practice of the vastness of ourselves that can hold it all. And in the last minute or so of our practice, I'll share David White's poem, Everything is Waiting for You. Your great mistake is to act the drama as if you were alone, as if life were a progressive and cunning crime with no witness to the tiny hidden transgressions. To feel abandoned is to deny the intimacy of your surroundings. Surely even you at times have felt the grand array, the swelling presence, the chorus, crowding out your solo voice. You must note the way the soap dish enables you or the window latch grants you freedom. Alertness is the hidden discipline of familiarity. The stairs are your mentor of things to come. The doors have always been there to frighten and invite you. And the tiny speaker in your phone is your dream ladder to divinity. Maybe the prayer. Put down the weight of your aloneness and ease into the conversation. The kettle is singing even as it pours you a drink. The cooking pots have left their arrogant aloofness and seen the good in you at last. All the birds and creatures of the world are unutterably themselves. Everything is waiting for you. We might say that every day should be Mother's Day, just like I mentioned earlier, that every part of us deserves an attention and honoring. And yet it's good to single out and take time and have this day to honor all of what motherhood means in your life, to the mother you had that birthed you, to this earth mother, um, to the creative force of feminine energy, to I'm not prepared to speak of it, but all that is mothering. And some of us who don't have children but who have fur children, or who have birthed a poem or a company or a garden, or there's motherhood available everywhere, and we can look to all of it that we have are grateful for, and also not to exclude that dark feminine, um, which is was in the poem somewhere. Anyway, that may be on the surface painful, but might have, just like a lot of times, a dark period is essential to birth something that is beautiful and new and refreshing. It's all here for us. Thank you. See you next time.